You recommended them, I watched them, and today I'm here to talk about some of your favorite anime that I just finished watching for the first time. I'm reviewing 3 heavy hitters today: Gurren Lagann, Mushoku Tensei, and Code Geass. In case you haven't seen any of these series before, I'm going to briefly give my spoiler-free thoughts and recommendations at the start of each section, and then move into the spoiler-filled, juicy stuff. Thank you to everyone who left recommendations on my last video. If you have any of your own, please leave them in the comments down below. Now, let's get started. Of the 3 shows I watched for this video, Gurren Lagann was the one I knew the least about going in, and I think that was a major benefit because the story unfolds in ways that caught me off guard. The series begins with 2 boys who live in an underground society who want to dig through to the heavens. Their village is then attacked by a giant mecha from the sky, and with the help of a girl warrior who fell with it, they defeat it and make their way to the surface. There, they discover all of human society lives underground because of the threat of the Beast Men, who attack the planet in their mechas every morning. To be perfectly honest, when I first started the show, I wasn't super into it. The setup didn't really grab me, and I'm not super into mechas or anything, so that wasn't a hook for me either, but everything changed around episode 7 of 27. Here, the series takes everything that you expected to happen, completely flips it on its head, and keeps moving at an excellent pace as the action and stakes grow exponentially larger until it's comical just how far these characters have come from the beginning. This is a series about always striving to do your best, about never giving up hope even in the darkest moments of despair, and I think it delivers on what it set out to do in a way that left me extremely satisfied. It's a short series, and if you do give it a shot, just be aware that the first few episodes, while important, aren't well representative of the series as a whole. I recommend getting through episode 8, and then deciding from there how you want to proceed. Now, onto the spoiler review. This show really was something special. I don't think it's one of my favorite shows of all time or anything, and I can actually find quite a lot of faults within the show, but there's something about it that is just unique and powerful. It starts off about this little digger boy who lives underground, and then 7 years later, he's fighting the sworn enemy of humanity in a universal-sized mecha, getting hit with actual solar systems as throwing stars. What the fucking shit? The show moves incredibly fast, and I was always blown away by how good the pacing was, even in those early episodes, which I found to be underwhelming. As I said, at first I wasn't super into Gurren Lagann. I liked it, but I wasn't blown away, and I was rolling my eyes a lot of the time. That all changed with the death of Kamada, which completely shattered my expectations. That brilliant decision took what felt like a very standard shonen anime, with some interesting concepts and really one primary likable character, and transformed it into this epic representation of humanity's strive to always keep pushing forward and overcoming their flaws through insanely bombastic mecha fights that purposely make little sense on grander and grander scales until what's on the line is unthinkable to lose. It's absolutely fantastic, and my chest just got tight thinking about it. The show does have problems. A lot of the background characters don't leave an impact. The series is way too obsessed with adding in tit jiggles at every turn, especially for young characters, and the early episodes aren't gripping. But what the show has going for it is truly excellent character writing that is kept within a tight framework to drive home the message of the story, and I think that's really incredible. I think everything with Simone immediately following Kamada's death is fantastic. Seeing him go to a dark place, which actually lasts for a couple of episodes, was much needed, and it was also the perfect timing to introduce Nia into the story. I loved everything with the 7-year time skip, particularly with how Rousseau was handled. I thought it was an inspired decision to make him similar to the priest from his home village, now repeating the same mistakes, but with the best of intentions. He was pretty much just a placeholder before the time skip, but was written so well afterwards that he became one of my favorite characters. And then there's Vital. Talk about a come-up. When he was first introduced in episode 3, I was not expecting him to stay around throughout the series, but his implementation as a constant antagonist and rival, first for Kamada and then later for Simone, was great, and his alliance to protect all spiral beings with humanity earned him his spot in Gurren Lagann. Even Yoko, who at first I thought was just there to flash some tatas, had an endearing storyline that went beyond the stereotypical character I thought she would be. The animation is also spectacular. The minute-to-minute stuff is fine, but the action is next level. For a show from 2007, it beyond holds up. There's one fight in particular that is so raw and desperate, the fight between Simone and the Spiral King, where the animation matches the tone in a really unique style just for that one episode. Honestly, the best compliment I can give the show is that it knows what it wants to do and what it wants to say, and it says it. It says it loud, and it says it often, and it says it until it's got you saying it too. It's damn contagious. While I don't think Gurren Lagann is one of the best anime of all time, or even the best anime in this video, I do think it's a damn good time, and I'm glad to have seen it. Mushoku Tensei, Jobless Reincarnation, is a series about a 32-year-old recluse who dies and is reincarnated into a fantasy world as a baby with all his old memories, and naturally, he begins to teach himself magic. Now, this is a show that I'd have a hard time recommending to anyone with an understandably weak stomach for overly sexualizing young characters. Let me get that out right away, because it is a serious barrier to entry for what is otherwise an absolutely fantastic show. But I've gotta be honest, I really found the first handful of episodes to be pretty off-putting because of how overtly sexual they are. Not because they are just raunchy, but because they are focused on, you guessed it, kids. The series does move past the focus on that, but it's so over the top that you do need to be warned about it from the jump to brace yourself. Now that I've absolutely assassinated this show's good name, let me talk about why I would actually recommend watching. I don't think I've ever experienced a series that is quite the slow burn that this one is. Not to say that the pacing is too slow, but it legitimately feels like a show takes the time to age the character up from a baby to an older boy in a way that benefits the story rather than hinders it. This is one of the best soft world-building series I have ever seen, teasing out elements early on only to pay them off in unexpected ways later. It makes sense why the main character is so powerful. It makes sense the things he does or doesn't know about this world, and it makes sense the relationships he develops. Much like Gurren Lagann, Mushoku Tensei's larger story kicks in around episode 8, and we are thrown into an even larger, more epic fantasy adventure than I was expecting, which introduces new peoples, cultures, lands, conflicts, prejudices, and relationships that feels like one of the most interesting fantasy worlds I have seen in quite some time. If you don't mind a slow build-up, enjoy stories about fantasy adventurers, feel like you can grit your teeth through the sexualization, and are interested in the themes of growth and second chances, then I highly recommend you check out Mushoku Tensei. Now, onto some spoilers. Dude, what is up with the man god? This world is absolutely insane, and I'm totally enthralled in everything that is going on. I did enjoy the episodes before the mana disaster that completely reshaped the whole series. What an excellent idea. But my problem, as I stated before, was just how much of the show was focused on Rudius perving out on kids. The worst moment of all this was on Eris's 10th birthday, where Rudius nearly has sex with his cousin at the age of 8, and the way it is animated is so detailed that I feel like I'm on an FBI watch list for streaming it. I'm fine when it happens with the other characters, like that weird elf who loves her orgies, but the kids are what really bothers me. I love this show. I truly want to see more of Rudius' journey, how he continues to grow in this new world, and what new interesting characters he'll meet next. When the larger story kicks in, although it is chaotic, the episodes leading up to it have shown the audience that Rudy could reasonably get out of this situation through hard work and the experience he's cultivated, both emotionally and physically, and I really appreciate how well crafted the overall narrative is, as well as Rudy's own arc. His character growth actually does involve being less of a sexual deviant, and I appreciated that aspect of the story. Seeing how his father acted and hearing stories about him does impact Rudy's decisions in an organic and natural way that clearly demonstrates a split from how he used to be to how he is at the end of the season. But Rudy really grows super interesting because of the new characters and situations he faces. One man in particular really brought the show to the next level, and that is Ruijerd. I mean, this guy's the fucking best, man. It's not even like his story is that unique, but how he's used to inform us of the broader world, and also to reshape Rudius' point of view, is so excellent. I didn't really care about Eris much before she gets teleported with Rudy, but by the end of the season, she also becomes one of my favorite characters. The adventurer journey that this trio goes on, meeting new people in mysterious lands, is so badass, with just the right amount of cynical realism and unexpected twists, that I could have watched this forever. I'm honestly pretty upset that they break up by the end of season 1, as I was expecting this trio to be together for a bit more, but that's another aspect of the show that is so excellent. it is constantly changing. Even when Rudy is sent to court to teach Eris, that is such an unexpected development, but it feels natural, as do all the other drastic shifts like it. So, I don't know what to expect for the future, but I'm glad I got in on the show when it's just getting started, and I'm very excited to see what more it has to offer. By the end of season 1, this series turned out to be something pretty special. Of the 3 shows on this list today, Code Geass was the one that was recommended to me the most frequently. This show seems to have an eager fan base that are ready to spread the word of Lelouch, and I can understand why. The first thing I'll say, which isn't groundbreaking, is that this show has Death Note vibes. The main character is this manipulative, unassuming guy who gains a special power, just like Light, but take Light and swap him out with the thought-to-be-dead secret prince of a global empire in a sci-fi future, and you have yourself a starkly different show. Code Geass is the story of Lelouch v Britannia, a prince in hiding in the colonized territory of Japan who gains a mysterious power to manipulate people, which he uses to incite a rebellion against the Britannian colonizers with the ultimate goal of killing the emperor, his father. The series hooks you with the interpersonal, low-stakes shenanigans of the student council, the dynastic, interfamilial drama of the Britannian heirs, the nationalistic politics of a colonial empire involving global power, terrorism, and manipulating public sentiment, all while in the background there's some ancient, witchy magic shit going on. Code Geass is anything but boring, constantly keeping you on your toes with all the elements I just described and how they collide. Similar to Gurren Lagann, the main sources of action for Code Geass are big ol' mech battles that take themselves a bit more seriously, but still aren't really the primary focus. They're just a tool that allows for more creative and bombastic action sequences. I have to say that I think the world of the series is another selling point. A conquered, futuristic Japan ruled by one of 3 great nations is interesting enough, but how the series is able to convey the sentiments of the colonized really keeps the series grounded in how these games of the nobility impact the lives of everyday people. Lelouch works so well in the setting as a manipulator of all sides, made all the better by the fantastic side characters of this story. I don't want to go into all the details, but I think I've given a curious mind enough to work with. If anything that I've said sounds interesting to you, I'd give the first 3 episodes of Code Geass a shot, because if you're anything like me, you will be fairly confused at first. Now, onto the spoilers. Code Geass did not go how I thought it would at all. I loved the slow buildup of Season 1, with Lelouch gathering all his forces, and the gray area he was operating in, which made it hard for the audience to decide what to make of him. I think the balancing act of what is essentially a superhero secret identity plotline made Lelouch's personal life interesting, and perfectly fed into his role as Zero. Throughout Season 1, the storytelling got better and better, culminating in a final climactic battle between the Black Knights and the Britannian forces, headed by Lelouch and Suzaku, following the massacre committed by Princess Euphemia under Lelouch's accidental spell. It was also perfect, with every step, side character, and subplot leading to this final battle. Then, Season 2 happens, and it started off on the wrong foot for me. I didn't like the idea of the world resetting after the events of Season 1, but with that said, once things get moving again, I did appreciate what was done from a story perspective. Season 2 takes everything that made Season 1 so great and remixes it in an entertaining way that keeps character dynamics and motivations fresh, while expanding everything out as far as it could possibly go. In Season 1, I was disappointed that it was focused so much on Japan, and just as it was about to expand, the story's legs were cut out from under it with the reset at the start of Season 2. However, very quickly, the story goes international and keeps propelling forward in a realistic way while still managing to keep tethered to Japan and the characters who are based there. Zero leaving to ally himself with the Chinese and then betraying them, but still managing to manipulate events to get the Chinese resistance on his side so that he can form a United States of Nations, which the Black Knights serve as the arm of their military, was exactly the kind of international shenanigans I wanted to see by this point in the story. Every step of that journey was fantastic, and I feel like the promise of the show was delivered on by the end. The characters all go on excellent journeys throughout this show. Lelouch and Suzaku's relationship morphs in a way that was truly unexpected, and I love their constantly shifting dynamic all the way to the end when Suzaku dons the mask of Zero and slaughters him, both serving as Lelouch and Suzaku's penance. Kallen is placed in a really interesting focal point throughout the series, but especially in Season 2, knowing that Lelouch is Zero gave her a lot more room to operate, and I truly felt bad for her being sucked into Lelouch's world and unsure where she stands. Of everyone close to Lelouch, I feel like Kallen got the short end of the stick because he never had a moment of true honesty with her like he did with Cece, Suzaku, and Nunnally. Speaking of Cece, she was kind of a weird background character in Season 1, but stepped up in Season 2 and became a real character rather than a mystery woman, and I loved this side of her. Her tragic backstory was expected, but appreciated, and how that shapes the way she sees the world now was very interesting. The two ultimate villains, the Emperor and Schneisel, serve their roles well enough. I think the Emperor's plan was a little confusing and odd. It felt like it was reverse engineered a bit, especially just adding Nunnally into the fake murder scene of their mother, which seemed like it only happened that way because that was already the established canon. They aren't perfect villains, but I like how philosophically positioned all three men of this family were. The Emperor wants humanity to live in the past, Schneisel wants humanity to live in the present, and Lelouch wants humanity to keep striving for a better future. As I said, when I first started this series, I thought it was just going to be a Death Note clone with a main character who gets worse and worse until ultimately he's defeated. To my surprise, that isn't what happened, and I'm really appreciative of where this story decided to go. Yes, Lelouch isn't the best guy in the world. He made mistakes, used people, stole their free will, and caused an unknowable amount of deaths, but in the end, he was doing it all to make the world a better place. He sacrificed his own happiness and took the weight of global hatred upon his shoulders to break the present state of misery and usher in a new era of hope and freedom. The story doesn't tell you whether or not Lelouch was a good or bad guy. It isn't black and white. Lelouch was Lelouch. He made his choices for his reasons, but in the end, there's no denying the world is better off, although not perfect. That's up for humanity to figure out for themselves. All I know for sure is that I loved this show, and I'm happy you all recommended it to me. And that's it for this round of viewer recommendations. Did any of these shows stand out to you? Please let me know in the comments, and please leave me some more recommendations. So far, you guys have not let me down, except for Promise Neverland, but that's not your fault. Thank you for watching, and until the next time, I'll shut up.